In 1954, a British woman by the name of Jessie Rosenberg saw a huge flying saucer hovering over her house. Not only did she see the flying saucer, she also saw two alien beings inside.
I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire. A shh sort of noise, you know. And my first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that. And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find my two sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this, all I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. A dome. It was tilted to sort of, I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were two people in there.
In tonight's video, we're going to look at this amazing UFO encounter and show some footage you probably have never seen before. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to take us over to England. A lot of people say we have more sightings in the US, but they're actually all over the world. So tonight's testimony is going to come from Jessie, and it's going to take place in 1954, October 21st. So the interview I'm going to show you guys took place several years, actually back in I think the 70s, with her giving her testimony of what she witnessed on her farm. It's pretty interesting, some of the detail. You can tell by her facial expressions, even though it happened 10 or 15 years earlier, her facial expressions, and she can still remember it detail to detail of what she explains here. And this was all over their news for a short period of time. You guys see little newspaper articles and clippings. There was magazine articles and stuff on this as well. But what I want you guys to pay close attention to is when she talks about her two children. Here she is with her three children. She had a daughter a little bit later on, and that's her husband. But listen to what she talks about when she heard her kids outside, and then when she went out and saw the encounter. You can see in her facial expression and stuff from that. And then I also want you to pay close attention to when she talks about the craft hovering over her house or her cottage. Now, this is a photo of her house and cottage that she lived in, and just imagine how large this craft was, and you just going out and seeing this thing just hovering over. So she gives a little bit of detail about the craft, what she saw, and even the occupants inside. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let this interview play, and then I'll be back in just a minute, because it's a very, very, very intriguing and interesting interview.
Staffordshire's had a whole crop of flying saucers. Spots in the sky, lights in the sky, strange things. But the strangest of all was seen one day over this cottage. Mr. and Mrs. Rustenberg were living there, quietly, out in the country. And, well, you just tell me what you saw.
Well, it was one ordinary day. I was waiting for my husband to come home from work, and my two sons went to Seifert to school, and I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire. A shh sort of noise, you know. And my first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that. And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find my two sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Well, naturally, I just said, "Come on, don't be stupid. Come in the house." But felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this, all I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. A dome. It was tilted to sort of, I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were two people in there. These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of the hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now...
All right, just to interject real quick, what she is describing as what we know as, sometimes they're called the tall whites, where they have pale white skin, dark blue eyes, and gold hair, not really blonde hair. And she's describing basically like the Nordic aliens. They're called the tall whites and a couple other things as well. But this is the first time that someone has explained them, and it hasn't been the terminology of calling them what we call them today. But I'll leave a link below in the description, because she's not the first one to see this. You guys see George Adamski saw something similar as well. But I'll get back to this video, but I just wanted to kind of cut in and tell you guys about that real quick in case you didn't know.
These people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me.
Were you looking at them through windows, through portholes, or what?
No, not portholes. It was just sort of like a cockpit, I suppose, that had this perspex or glass or whatever it was. They could see me anyway, and I could see them. And they had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, you know, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had around their heads, which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked. And I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic that I was just mesmerized for what seemed to be, ages, but it could have only been seconds. And I turned to sort of look down at the boys, was unaware that they were with me because I was so absorbed. And the next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
How low had it been?
It had been the height, I couldn't tell you. But the house that you've seen, it was just on top of the roof. It was hovering on top of the roof.
How big was it compared with the size of the house?
It swallowed the whole circumference of the roof. I couldn't see, the roof was completely blotted out. The chimneys I couldn't see. All I could see was this massive object that I described as like a Mexican hat without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see. I just looked up and it had gone. But I assume it went straight up, because for a short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my two boys, "Where can you see anything? Can you see anything?" And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton reel in the sky, and it circled us 3 times. It went round 3 times, and then it just shut off, and that was it. When I started to analyze myself afterwards, I feared that I might have had an hallucination, but then I knew I hadn't had, because my sons were so sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen. And it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't be that, because if they had something like that, they wouldn't need to fear anybody or anything.
Were you scared by it? Did you run indoors?
Oh, I was petrified. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. I was paralyzed with fear. But now I wouldn't be. Because now, when I look back, you know, I think, what an amazing thing to have happened, and for me to have seen it.
Alright guys, an amazing testimony. I have to give her props and her family too, because they did suffer a little ridicule when they came out with this. People thought they were crazy and everything else with it. But for her to come up and still remember this, you know, 20, 30 plus years later, and still be able to recount it and not change her story at all, I do give them props for that. And this is some of the rare stuff that you don't see today. Most people try to fabricate stuff or all that, but I want you to imagine, this is going to look kind of weird, going outside and seeing a UFO, the best way she to describe it at that time, because she wasn't desensitized, the kind of stuff that we've seen and known a little bit about it, seeing something that big hovering over your house. And not only at that, hovering over your house and kind of tilting down with 2 occupants looking at you. first time she's ever seen that. She had never heard of anyone else talking about anything like that. So interesting, very interesting. So put down in the comments what you guys think about that, because the way she described the crabs she saw looks nothing like some of the stuff that we've heard about from the 40s and the 50s. So it was pretty unique. So possibly a lot of these particular alien beings have different craft that they fly in. Maybe the functionality is somewhat the same in some aspects. I don't know, but I'll have to look into that to see if people, when they saw some of these other beings, if they've flown different craft and what they look like. But put down in the comments what you guys think, because I think it's pretty interesting if I even backtrack to think about particular like the Greys, the Nordics, and see what kind of crafts they fly in. But regardless, I commend her for coming forward, giving this testimony, taking the ridicule that she had taken, especially at the time when they weren't desensitized to UFOs and aliens and stuff like we are today, and still being able to come forth years and years later and talk about this. So as always, guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.